Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's October 4, 2025, and I'm going to read a response from somebody on Quora to the question, is gang stalking real and how do they pick their targets? And I'm going to piggyback that question and answer with a continuing reading of mobbing, emotional abuse in the American workplace, and a quick chapter on personality, psychology, and circumstances of the mobbee, meaning the victim of the mobbing. So on Quora, the question is gang stalking real, and how do they pick their targets? The answer is gang stalking is real. There is no doubt about it. I myself am a targeted individual of this reality. I have done a lot of research in regard to how they choose their targets, and the common reason for one to be targeted is that the individual is of good morals or positive energy. They can be seen as somebody with high potential, but in most cases have not reached their full potential in life yet. For the majority of individuals that are targeted, they have an addiction to something, being drugs, gambling, or sex. This is what the gang stalkers use against the TI targeted individual as a tool that makes the individual feel less of themselves. Well, from what I understand in interviewing targeted people, that does not apply to all targeted people. I know targeted people that never do drugs, gamble, and are basically, have not had sex in years. So, and as targeted people that are isolated, that is often the case. So I don't necessarily agree with this response, but I do agree with it in part. This is what the gang stalkers use against the TI, targeted individuals, a tool that makes the individual feel less of themselves. I will admit and agree that when you first read this, you might be saying, that doesn't make sense. Why would people with good morals or positive energy be targeted? Well, this is what I thought. And only when you're able to open your mind and truly take a step back, you will begin to understand the situation for what it is. Let's look at this from a third-party perspective. What scenario would be logical if this was, in fact, the reason why one is targeted? And as you can see from my little image here, I mean, the FBI will put anybody on a watch list. Right? They'll watch list you if you just piss off the neighbor's dog. Like, who did you piss off? You get on a list. So this person's theory is based off the notion that it's evil spirits that are trying to bring you down, or negative energy entities, and or that they, quote unquote, are in fact guardian angels speaking to you. The phrase gang stalking or guardian angels talking, again, take an open mind to this. Think of what you have heard about God and the devil. They play a game to try to win souls. They can only whisper or influence you to move in a direction, but they cannot physically harm you. Well, that's not true. They physically harm a lot of us every night while we're sleeping or walking across the property, with their little hand weapons. God will try to influence you to do good, smile, look at the bright side of things. Remind you that you are perfect for who you are and influence you to progress in becoming enlightened. Taking away the weight so that you may live in happiness and stress-free. Filling with positive energy, reminding you to focus on a healthy mind, body, and soul. The way to defeat this situation is to view everything as an opportunity, to look at everything as positive, to love everything and to help others, to use the situation to your benefit. Now, at first you might not see how this is possible, but that is because of the confusion of how this is possible and not truly understanding the motive or intentions of the gang stalkers. The community morons. The cops, mops, lops, dops, and wops. You can't leave out the witches on patrol. The pops, the parasites, pedos, predators on patrol, perverts on patrol. Don't worry, this is normal, but this is the challenge. Again, the challenge is to take a negative situation and turn it into a positive. Well, okay, taking a negative situation, turning it into a positive, I have definitely enhanced my acronym vocabulary. I have discovered that I can find all sorts of things in my mailbox and laugh at it. Laugh at the ignorance of the people perpetrating these crimes. The positive thing? I don't know if it's positive or negative, but I was extremely naive before. I never knew how corrupt most cities, states, and governments are. I really didn't. I was naive to think that most people were good. I was terribly wrong. And I have educated myself, being a targeted person, that most governments are corrupt as hell. And I was listening to another YouTube creator who's in the Lecter County, you know, where the sheriff shot the judge, on camera, on video, you know, and talking now after the fact. A lot of people are coming forward about what that judge was doing, but nevertheless, the judge is not around to defend himself. And of course, the sheriff still is, and everybody wants to protect the sheriff. But it's so interesting to find out all the deep, dark secrets of that town. And I thought it was only Manalapan, New Jersey that did the spousal swapping. I thought that they were the spouse swapping capital of the United States. But now, from what I understand, Lecter County may fill that position as well. Kentucky, by the way. So and this person says, message me if you have any questions or need to talk to. I will listen to everything with an open mind and non-judgmental way. And if there's any advice you can give me, I'm always ready to absorb new knowledge. The best advice I can give you is adjust, don't think positive or pray for the positive, but do positive, and positive will do for you. And that's why I have this channel. It's not only about me and providing my evidence. This is about educating you. And I so appreciate your comments that until you saw some of my evidence, until you heard the things that I was talking about, you thought that it was only happening to you and that you were crazy. You are not crazy. There is nothing wrong with you. Everybody around you has been co-opted to gaslight you, stonewall you, meaning prevent you from speaking your truth. But you can speak your truth here on this channel, and that's what I do. And I ain't ever going to shut up. So now, to validate this person, let me get you this name of this person. This is Robert James. This is, actually, he says he's a motivational speaker, but I didn't realize that this is from 6 years ago. Okay, so I'm not sure if the guy's around anymore. Well, it says you could still follow him. Robert James, he's a motivational speaker. He responded to, is Gangstalking real and how do they pick their targets 6 years ago? So it's still up here on Quora. Now we're going to go to the book, Mobbing, Emotional Abuse in the American Workplace. This is an important book. It sheds light on great suffering and proposes ideas to reduce the suffering. Read this book as a safety manual for avoiding the most terrifying kind of a workplace injury. This is the first U.S. book on mobbing, a widespread and serious form of workplace victimization. And this book is written in 1999. An insidious and powerful subculture is thriving in the American workplace. Every day in all sorts of workplaces, mean-spirited mobs are forcing capable, hardworking employees to flee from jobs they love. Despite historic successes of unions and civil and human rights movements, the best efforts of enlightened managers and millions of Americans suffer the dignity-robbing trauma known as mobbing. And you can carry this over into your community as community harassment, the criminals on patrol, the losers on patrol, the lops, the morons on patrol, the mops, the dops, the dog walkers on patrol, or the dogs that they throw on your property, the dogs, dops, lops, mop cops, the criminals on patrol, pops, predators, perverts, parasites, perps on patrol, and the wops, the witches on patrol. And make no mistake, everybody, you all have witches following you. Not just me, not just the high-level target. They've got witches everywhere. This is a satanic agenda. Mobbing extracts staggering economic and emotional costs from victims, their families, and society. And in many cases, victims are literally mobbed by coworkers, not only old-fashioned bullying bosses. Many of the victims are managers and supervisors attacked and undermined by jealous or unscrupulous subordinates or peers, often with the approval of higher management. The mobs intentionally target and ultimately destroy innocent individuals. Now at last, with this book, there is a name for the problem and help for the victim. So I'm going to read the chapter, Personality, Psychology, and Circumstances of the Mobbee, which is the victim of mobbing. And once again, mobbing, which they call vulturing, which I love. It's the first time I've heard the term. Vulturing is in this book. Mobbing is not just ordinary stalking. Mobbing includes the addition, according to this book, 2 or more individuals who are in a position of authority. So that would be a supervisor, an HR person, a president. Carry that into your community. That could be a local judge, a local sheriff's department, a police department, somebody at a local business. Person in a position of authority who is aware that it's happening, chooses to do nothing, protect the bullies, and or participate. That is when it's considered mobbing and not just ordinary stalking. That's when it becomes a group. And of course, the derogatory terminology for this is gang stalking, but it is in fact mobbing. Can a case be made for personality traits that would be conducive to being mobbed? Can mobbees be held responsible for what happens to them? Researchers debate the question whether there is anything in a person's background, behavior, attitude, character, or circumstance that predisposes them to being mobbees. There is no case that can be made for a personality issue, as there is no research determining what individuals were like prior to being mobbed. And now that is one of the single most important characteristics that I would take out of any research performed on mobbing, is that people are not interviewed prior to mobbing. And that's why on this channel I want you to submit your testimony on what your life was like before mobbing, before stalking, before being placed on a watch list. Now again, this is 1999, and there could be many other books on the topic, and I'm sure there are, including websites and social media platforms, etc., people interviewing others on this topic. So according to Layman, Leymann, no case can be made for a personality issue, and there is no research determining what individuals were like prior to being mobbed. And again, once again, I will emphasize that. What your life was like before and how it has changed you. Yet we found that the people they interviewed were exceptional individuals. They demonstrated throughout their professional careers many positive qualities: intelligence, competence, creativity, integrity, accomplishment, and dedication. They were mostly people who Daniel Coleman would consider emotionally intelligent. In general, they have learned to work things out. They were creative problem solvers. They examine their own behaviors and then they correct them when they see that they have made a mistake. Okay, now I'm going to stop there, because most of the individuals that are going to be mobbing you are narcissists, malignant narcissists, sociopaths, sadists, psychopaths, addicts. Okay? So, by their very nature, narcissists, malignant narcissists, psychopaths do not believe that they are making a mistake. And if they suddenly are of the understanding that they have made a mistake, they will not own it. They will project that mistake onto you. You are the one that did wrong, not me. You are the one. So there is no ability, no desire to correct themselves when they have made a mistake. Now, this is a man named Howard. He says, before I lived through this, I always thought that when it happened to others, there was a reason. That you were a jerk. You provoked it. You must have done something. You should have backed up at some point. You should have found out from them what it was that they wanted. Basically, I always believed that you were responsible for what happened to you. That is why I struggle so much with this. I wanted to analyze it. I tried so hard to keep my job. I knew it was on the line when the new CEO came. And that's a very common occurrence when a new manager comes on board. They tend to want to get rid of the old workers who were aligned with the old manager, and the new manager feels kind of paranoid that adopting the old employees will not benefit him. So he'll systematically get rid of the old employees and bring on a new tribe to protect this person, the new person. So if I would have started to look for another job, it would have been a sign of disloyalty. So this is like a loyal person. Even understanding that when the new CEO came on board, his job might be on the line, he still remained loyal and did not look for another job. And that would have pushed me out of the door faster. This is the mindset of a person at the workplace whose attitude and background and character were intelligent, competent, creative, integrous, accomplishment, and dedicated. Even when they thought that their job was on the line, they were dedicated to the job to not leave. So Dr. Kenneth Westhus, who wrote Eliminating Professions, found in his study that professors who were ganged up on tend to be trusting, naive, politically inept, and high achievers. Well, I'll tell you, in my past life, that sounds just like me. Politically inept, high achiever, trusting, and naive. I can't say I possess all of those qualities anymore. So in that regard, I have certainly changed. In many cases, they are indeed partially responsible for what happens to them. In the same way as Socrates was, they tend to be principled sorts of individuals, inner-directed as opposed to other-directed. So these are people that can think for themselves. They don't need to listen to the crowd to guide them in any direction at all. They are not the go-with-the-flow sorts of people. So no, you're not a sheep. You're not a go-along to get along. You're not a pushover. You're not a wannabe. You're not a kiss-up. What we learned from our interview partners, however, is that people react quite differently to similar mobbing conduct, and that they are differently affected by the syndrome, and they call it a syndrome. Those who successfully overcome the mobbing resort to their own strength and inner resources and may develop survival strategies. Like acronyms. cops, dops, lops, mops, pops, and wops. And I'm sure I'm working on acronyms for every letter of the alphabet. I just haven't had time to write them all down yet. So why me? We seem to face a dilemma, and anybody can become a victim. Anybody can become a victim. All you have to do is piss off your neighbor's dog, piss off a narcissist, look better than they do, smarter than they are, work well in the workplace, and you will have a bunch of demonic, envious, jealous losers on your tail to take you down. Even though anybody can become a victim, it seems that certain people are picked out because of certain characteristics. Wyatt and Hare, H-A-R-E, believe in theories of childhood patterning. They maintain that how a person learns survival skills and develop their own coping mechanism as a child, how they learn to deal with shame and abuse in their developmental years, will influence how they will manage to stand up to an abusive situation at work, or, how we said earlier, become abusers themselves. And I will say that I did not grow up in an environment of shame and abuse. My parents were very supportive. They did their own thing. They were intelligent, psychic, hard workers, inventors, socially adept, high IQ, and they became victims too. My mom later in life. My mom became targeted after I became targeted. Because my mom helped me, so guess what they had to do to her? They had to delete her. Delete her. Yeah, and after they deleted her, they stole her driver's license out of her wallet. Blinded her cat beforehand. Entered her home. And I know, because after my mom passed away, and I had to go back to New York and go through her apartment, I found all the local Freemason symbols embedded, all the things that they did to my mother in her apartment that she likely was not aware of. You know how they would steal one glove, one earring? My mother never lost stuff. She was like impeccable. And then I was going through her belongings and I would find like a half a dozen earrings where there was only one. That is not my mother. And, I mean, everybody can lose an earring once in a while, but not like a half a dozen pairs. And what about the gloves? Missing gloves? Nah, not my mom. Nope. But that's what they do. Oh, and of course, yes, they etch their little triangle in her Formica bed frame. Do you have any idea how difficult it is to even scratch Formica? And for those of you younger people, Formica is like hard as a rock. It's like this heavy-duty plastic shiny covering that they used like back in the 70s mostly to cover things like kitchen counters and bed frames and stuff, because it was hard as a rock, it wouldn't scratch and always kept a shine. But yet, my mother had a triangle taken out of hers. I can't even imagine how that could have happened. But I'm sure my mother didn't notice it. I did. So, okay, we'll get back from my soliloquy. And they maintain that how a person learns survival skills and develop their own coping mechanisms as a child, how they learn to deal with shame and abuse in the developmental years, will influence how they will manage to stand up to an abusive situation at work or in your neighborhood. Like when your bully neighbor trespasses your property, you speak right back out at them and have a bigger mouth than they do. They become abusers themselves. That's right, you abuse me, I'm going to abuse you right back. Similar thinking guided by Neil Crawford, a psychotherapist who wrote the chapter, The Psychology of the Bullied. And Andrea Adams' Bullying at Work. Individuals can be victimized no matter who they are, how old they are, how devoted they are, how loyal they are, creative, experienced, organized, responsible, how much initiate they demonstrate, or how much of a team player they are. Our interview partners, and this is what they all had in common, seemed to have a high degree of loyalty towards their organizations and were highly identified with their work or by their work. We suggest that particularly creative individuals may be more often subjected to mobbing because they promote new ideas which may challenge others. Often mobbies, the victims, are selected because they constitute a threat to a higher positioned person. I'm going to repeat that because that one needs to be remembered. Mobbies, or the victims, are selected because they constitute a threat to a higher positioned person. And that threat is usually a threat to their ego, a threat to their own job that you may take from them because you're better than they are in the workplace, or because of envy, jealousy, and greed. So this woman named Judy says, no matter who you are, everything goes back to this intolerance of anybody who's different or has a different style, rather than to appreciate everybody's strengths. If you work harder and you try to excel, you put pressure on them. If you work long hours, they assume you don't work smart. If you're single, you are definitely more vulnerable. Oh, and let me tell you about the threat I received online. I received an online threat. You know what the threat said? The threatening person says, get a man or be homeless. I kid you not. That threat in and of itself is a violation of not only my constitutional rights, however, it also violates YouTube's guidelines. So what do? You report them, get rid of them, but you maintain a copy of their threat. So one answer to the question, can a case be made for a person's own responsibility of becoming a mobbing target, is given by Dr. Kenneth Westhus. He writes, one can make a typography of ways of being different. Some of them are your skin color, your sex, your physical appearance, your foreign accent, the manners of a class higher or lower than your workmates, belonging to a pariah. Now again, YouTube, I am reading from a book. This is for educational purposes only. These are not my words. I'm reading from a book. The belonging to a pariah of people like Jews, Gypsies, Indians are qualities a person can't do much about. Other ways of being different are the rate buster, the whistleblower, the champion of the underdog, the person who asks too many questions. Well, I could check off that box when I was in school. I was the question asker. Are to some extent under the prospective mobbing target's control. So stop asking any questions. Don't be inquisitive. Don't want to know what's out there. Don't question anything. Don't piss off your neighbor's dog. And it's these people who are so desperately needed. The dynamics of the interaction, because the conflict over procedures and tasks, personalities or values, and unethical behaviors remain unresolved, it escalates. Now I want to add, with regard to these qualities that mobbies, the victims, possess, let's go back to a video I created about the rarest personality type is the INFJ. The rarest personality type is the INFJ. And I started to watch a video on YouTube. Somebody had the intent to create this video on why the devil targets the INFJ personality. Okay, so there is something to it. There's something to the INFJ personality type that the losers are scared to death of. The devil hates, is scared of, is threatened by of the INFJ type personality. The course of events forces some into subjugation and depression and others into action that runs against the organization's interests. So this is the way, when you're growing up, how your parents dealt with stress that were imprinted upon you in your formative years, and how you will then when you encounter stressful situations, how you will adapt or cope with them, cope to them. So the course of events forces some into subjugation and depression, but others into action, and it runs against the organization's interests. So this may have a devastating effect on their confidence. They feel vulnerable, disempowered, and confused, and then weak. It's like, because, hey, I didn't grow up with that. I didn't grow up with parents that were sheep. I wasn't taught to be a sheep. I grew up to not be a sheep. So then, when you go into these organizations or into a community that are all sheep, they look at you as like, you are the pariah because you're not a sheep. We are sheep, and we want our own kind of sheep. And this in turn may bring out behaviors in them that now give rise to complaints by the superiors and coworkers. As others now begin to display mobbing behaviors, the victim is pushed even further into defensive behavior. The more the mobbee, the victim, reacts in this way, the more the mobbers have reason to intensify their behavior, sometimes to the point of causing the mobbee to become paranoid or dysfunctional. This spiral can lead to the expulsion phase in the mobbing process, often under the accusation of quote-unquote mental illness. So this is what they do. They will torment you in the workplace. And oh my goodness, I have seen so many videos of how all these people are getting fired now, layoffs and stuff, just being called into the office, or not even being sent an email. You're fired. After working at a company for 20 years. They're just no reason given. So yeah, they do this. They turn the victim. They are victimizing somebody to the point causing them mental distress, because these are hard workers. They're not doing anything wrong. They're being who they are. They're being productive. They're being insightful. They're asking questions. They're there every day. They clock in. They do their work. But yet they are being targeted for all of these positive qualities because management feels threatened by the positive qualities of this individual. So then they enhance the mobbing to push the person out of the workplace. And of course, when somebody is being gaslit like that from people in a position of authority, it is very harmful. It causes stress. And stress, by the way, is cumulative. There's often very little or perhaps nothing that the mobbee, the victim, can do to change these dynamics. So please, people, do not blame yourself. You are not to blame for being who you are, for being positive, for being God-fearing, for being creative, for being intelligent, for being a hard worker, for being always there on time. It is not your fault that somebody, a narcissist, a psychopath, a sociopath, somebody who's addicted to sadism, harassing people, a projection, because they can't be you. They can't be as good as you. So they want to destroy you instead. It is not your fault for you being you. And don't ever believe it. The mobbers are far from wanting to change their behavior. Companies with effective conflict management procedures can avoid this course of events. And actually, when I was a corporate human resources manager, I was that person. I was the person who would engage in conflict resolution. It was me. Coping and outcome determined by beliefs. How well a person copes with seemingly unresolvable conflicts, personal attacks, and victimization is determined by their character and their personality, their life experience, and above all, by their beliefs. Meaning, that doesn't matter how many times some loser in your community screams at you from the county road, posts no trespassing signs, puts poopy diapers, puts double-headed dildos in your mailbox, dead animals. It's not about me. It's about them. Everything they do to me is a projection of who they are, that they are not. Dead animals, they are dead inside. A double-headed dildo just tells me they're perverts on patrol. Pops. Parasites. Predators. Perverts. Pedos on patrol. Normal people do not engage in those behaviors. But the persistent assaults begin to affect the mental and physical health. They change. They can't function normally. Some are less productive, less creative. Well, I'm going to say, with regard to a truly targeted individuals, that's not necessarily the case. What causes that is the directed energy weapons, the assault on your brain. Pulse microwave radiation and the surveillance technology, which Jesse Mendoza targeted a male in Texas, has done extensive research, not only of the directed energy weapons and the EMF, a protection and shielding, and the negative effects of EMF fields, but he did extensive research on the surveillance technology because it's 24/7. The microwaves, you're not getting the microwaves 24/7. You're getting the specific times of the day by the controller of that technology. But the surveillance technology is actually more harmful because it's 24/7. Meaning, the screen that I'm looking at now, my phone, the EMF fields from my phone, the technology that was installed in my house underneath my floorboards, in my roof ceiling, the technology that is in my fields here. How do I know? I had my videos analyzed. They set up a kill grid, a delete grid on my property that I paid for. That's right. I have the proof, guys. So when I finally do get to court, somebody's going to be in big trouble. But you're all in on it, and you're all in on it. You're all going to protect each other. You know, you won't all protect each other. I guarantee you won't. Because there ain't no sheriffs, none, that's going. Look at what happened in Lecter County. The sheriff even shot the judge, for God's sake. Oh my God. Oh my goodness, I could see the heads rolling now. So some people have a higher tolerance level than others and are better able to shield themselves from the assaults. They use many of the survival tactics described in Chapter 4. We haven't gotten to Chapter 4. So I will tell you that many of you guys attest to the fact that one of your survival skills is, faith in God, listening to music, ignoring them, and joking about it. Because actually, half of what they do is pathetically laughable. It is. It's laughable. And the fact that the intel agencies have these losers in their back pocket is even more laughable. That they were able to get away with doing that. That's how stupid the people are that go along to get along. The sheeple people. Okay, so, and in chapter 4 here, it says that they may survive longer, irrespective of the circumstances. Robert, for example, withstood a boss for 5 years who undermined him continuously. He was able to withstand the ordeal largely based on his strong religious beliefs. So what Robert says here is, at first, it made me very obstinate. I thought of things to do, even to take it to higher authorities, and then initiate formal discrimination procedures, and then get a federal government involved. I started documenting everything that was going on. I still have the documentation, but it looked like a hopeless case. I prayed a lot. The Lord told me what to do about it, to be at peace with it. I did a lot of praying and fasting. I stayed because there were a lot of people there who were depending on me. And that is the personality quality of all the good people that work in these places that are targeted. Even though this man, Robert, was literally being tormented at his job for 5 years, he stayed there because he's stubborn. He's obstinate. He's stubborn. He's like, no, you're not going to get me out of here just because you're giving me hell. Because of his belief in God. And he stayed because there were people there that depended on him. So you need to follow your heart. And some will stand up earlier and plan to escape, and others may wish to escape, and circumstances may prevent them from doing so. So some individuals might be especially vulnerable at the time of the mobbing because of other unsettling matters in their lives, relationship issues, concerns about children, parents, illness, deaths of loved ones, financial difficulties, and in such circumstances it's often so overwhelming to take on the task of a job search combined with a possible resettlement. And I'm going to end here on that note, because that's what the criminals here in Jackson County, Kentucky do. You know, it's one thing after the next. I can't tell you how many times I pick up branches that have been burned off of the trees, healthy trees that are lined all over my property. It's every day. It could be in the same places. No wind, no rain. I found another triangle piece of glass. Actually, it just occurred to me that when I was raking leaves, I raked around it and I still need to pick it up. But yeah, they like to intimidate me with triangle pieces of glass. So anyway, I'm not a sheep. I'm not a go along to get along. And yes, I am one of those personality types that nobody will get. Not even Dr. Rebecca Caleb Wilson, who claimed on recording she refused to give me a veterinary appointment because I'm not friends with her friends and she doesn't get me. I'm going to leave on that note. And also I made public, because I realized that I had made them private, 2 short videos on what I found in my mailbox last year. A double-headed dildo with writing on it, and a stuffed skinned animal. Some people say it's a deer, some people say it's a cow. It doesn't matter what it is. We don't know how it was tortured. The sheriff refused to investigate it. Fortunately, a nice deputy did show up and remove the remains from the mailbox because I wasn't going to do it. I was going to leave it there. And not only that, but I had mail in the mailbox. So they had the audacity to stuff that animal in there with my mail already in the mailbox. And yes, I've got photos of that mail with BLOOD all over it. And no, nothing was done here in Jackson County, Kentucky. And no, I'm not going to shut up about it either. So anyway, my parents did not teach me to be a sheep. So anyway, all it takes, people, is for you to piss off the neighbor's dog, piss off the neighbor's cat, piss off a malignant narcissist. Be different, look better, think differently. Cause somebody else to feel less than, because they won't grow, they won't change, and they will target you because they gang up. They are haters, they are losers, they engage in hate crimes for fun, for sadistic pleasure, and for money. And the video that I reposted on my community page, let's see, let me go to the channel there and show you this video. It's a really important one because it gives a completely different perspective on how your family members may become engaged in these atrocities against you and then how they go into your neighborhood. How they go into your neighborhood. And neighbors like this community, the groups of neighbors that target other people, are on the radar. They're on the lookout for a person to target, a family to target. They keep their ear to the ground on any military experiments that are going to be taking place so that they can get their little dirty, little pathetic, loser, greedy paws in somebody else's life. So let me just pull up the video so that you can see it in case you have not seen the post from yesterday. And forgive me, my laptop is old and slow. So I wrote, "Hi, newcomers and subscribers." I posted a video a few months back that was really helpful in understanding community involvement. 1 second. And it is called...
Here is Lorraine Valenti.
Not that one. Not Meg's.
Here is
not that
Valenti's updated testimony.
1 second.
Thank you again for giving the second part of your testimony, Lorraine. I really appreciate it.
1 second, guys.
Thank you. I mean, I really appreciate your taking the time, and I wanted to say before...
It is...
and this is not to you, but this is to the powers that be. I do not consent.
That's right.
I do not consent,
and neither do you.
You breaking into my house, surveilling me, breaking into
so
my
this
computer,
is
murdering my pets,
gang stalking, community-based stalking explained, the narcissist psyop.
Not consent.
Okay.
Stalkers that are stalking me right now, driving back.
So it's the gang stalking explained. It's the narcissist psyop. It's on my community homepage. Sorry about that, because on my homepage, I have a trailer for people that are new to my channel so that you can actually see what I look like, or what I looked like at that time that I was interviewed by Megs B, and the testimony that was provided to her when I lived at 52 Sutton Drive, Manalapan, New Jersey, Monmouth County, 07726, a home I lived in for 30 years as original owner, and that is where my targeting began. It followed me here to Jackson County, rural Kentucky, on a farm. And basically what that video explains is that the intel agencies go into communities. They already know who the hateful people are. They already know who the hate groups are. They are approached because they have already been surveilled. They already know their personality types. And those groups of people and the higher-ups are looking for a target. They are looking for a targeted family or targeted person to stalk, to place their hate upon, to profit from, benefit from, for covert military experimentation. So make no mistake, people, your neighbors know what's going on. Your county knows what's going on. They're all in and out. They're all banking on you. Which is why when you try to sell your property, they don't want you to sell. They want you to stay here so they can continue banking off of you and destroying your property at the same time, depreciate the value. So anyway, I'm going to end on that note. This is Lorraine Alternative Homesteading. Thank you all for subscribing and listening to my diatribe, my soliloquy, and listening to mobbing and the emotional abuse in the American workplace and how it relates to your personality type, your qualities. And no, you're not alone. You are not crazy. You did not do this to yourself. You're not schizophrenic. You don't have a mental illness. They do. They are the sick people. They are the cops, criminals on patrol. DOPS, the dogs on patrol. LOPS, the losers on patrol. MOPS, the morons on patrol. POPS, the pedos, perverts, parasites, predators, perpetrators on patrol. Oh yes, on the MOPS, Deborah added matrons on patrol. Yes, we've got the old ladies on patrol. Older than me, yeah. We got the old ladies on patrol asking about my ducks, my guineas. And then the WAPs, the witches on patrol. And yes, you all have witches following you around, performing rituals. I'm going to sign off for now. Lorraine Alternative Homesteading. I hope everybody's doing well, and I will talk to you guys soon.